Hello, everybody. Welcome along to the 2021 North American Formula 1000 Championship presented by EPCUSA.com. This is round 10 of the season. We're live from trackside at Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin on a picture-perfect afternoon for motorsports. The second race of the weekend, round 10 of the championship. Happy to have everybody along with us this afternoon. I'm joined by Ryan West. Hello, Ryan.
Good afternoon, Brendan.
And by Joseph Mudrock. Hello, Joseph.
Hey, Brendan.
I've remembered to introduce you this time. My name is Brandon Kazmarek, and together we're going to navigate the final race of the weekend for the Formula 1000s, sharing track time, of course, with the Formula Atlantics, as they do at most Formula Race Promotions weekends. But we are focusing on the F1000s. A six-car grid to take us through this afternoon. Gentlemen, race one yesterday. Significantly different condition-wise. This is much clearer, much crisper. It's a lot windier and generally more pleasant outside for racing than the humid, smoky, sort of messy affair we saw yesterday afternoon. However, on track, we expect the action to be about the same, don't we?
Yeah, we do have one sort of quirk today that we didn't have yesterday. It'll be a slightly abridged race. We'll take 2 laps off the total for today compared to yesterday. And it'll also be separate checkered flags, which will be a weird little situation to deal with, especially given that we might end up with a little bit of overlap between categories by the end of the race.
Yes. The concern yesterday was fuel consumption. Ryan, our Road America circuit this weekend sort of lends itself to being a little higher on fuel consumption than most. Long straightaways, fast corners don't give many opportunities for drivers to save fuel. And with the shortened races, that's mostly down to Road America being kind of unique in North American motorsports.
Yeah, it's one of the quickest tracks in the country, if not the continent, I'm sure. Aside from, ovals, etc. It's probably one of the quickest road courses. So yeah, like you were saying, there's lots of long straights. Most of the track is straights. You've got a lot of broad turns, you got some tight turns, but you're full throttle more than half the time, I think, at this track. So like you were saying, there's really no opportunity to save fuel. So that shortened race, I think, is going to allow people to kind of give it all they've got to see if they can get to the end of the race and be hopefully up front. Also, part of it being a quick track means you're going to have some draft action going on, not just with each other, but potentially with some of the Formula Atlantic cars as well. So there's going to be, I think, lots of passing, or lots of near passing at least. And I think you'll see the cars try to stay in a pack, at least until they catch the other class, in which case you might see stuff start to string out. But I think we'll be seeing a lot of fast laps. I think we'll be seeing a lot of slipstreaming and trying to get back ahead that way. And I think we'll see, if there's an opportunity for it, the only way to pass here is to get somebody on the brakes, really, especially in this kind of car. You're not going to pull up alongside somebody with the entry speeds as high as they are. There's a couple spots maybe, but like we were saying, pretty low tire degradation track as well. You're going to be trying to get people into corners as opposed to going around the outside.
Yeah, these braking zones are reasonably short. You are coming down from a very high speed, but you've got to sort of drop down 3 gears into most of these corners and get yourself to the apex. It makes passing a challenge, but not at all impossible. We saw a fantastic race yesterday. Alex Mayer ran sort of away at the front, but behind him, Steve Hamilton, Doug Hertz, Riley Harris, the trio of H's, as it was, put on a fantastic scrap for probably the first 8 to 10 laps or so before things strung themselves back out. Charles Livingston came home with a solid finish just at the end. Just a word of housekeeping. On the entry list, if you've been paying attention to the North American Formula 1000 Championship, you will have seen John Willoughby and Glenn Cooper. Glenn Cooper did not make it this weekend, and John Willoughby blew an engine in qualifying 1, so did not race yesterday and will not be racing today either, unfortunately. But that being said, like we mentioned, we've got 6 cars that'll take the green flag this afternoon. Alex Mayer and Steve Hamilton, a surprise front row qualifier this morning. Mayer's pull time was a 2:06.632. Steve Hamilton did a 2:09 flat, so it was a pretty solid margin between the 2 cars, but Hamilton was able to use the slipstream to good effect and put in a time that neither Doug Hertz nor Nathan Bird, which was the particular surprise, was able to catch. And I know we've sung Steve Hamilton's praises a lot this weekend, but just so impressed with how quickly he's come up to pace and how consistent he's been in that number 93 JDR. So it's a JDR lockout on the front row. Doug Hertz and Nathan Bird, third and fourth. Now, Doug Hertz is on board the Furman chassis. We know that car is quick in a straight line. It's a good, nimble chassis anyway. And I think he's got an opportunity to kind of hang with Steve Hamilton. Nathan Bird alongside him would have liked to have been in third. Second would have even been better, but especially being up in third would have given him the ability to be directly behind Alex Mayer on the starting grid, which means he would have been able to sort of hang in that slipstream. But as it stands, he's going to be staggered off to his right side, headed down the front straightaway. Or left, actually. I don't know what side the pole's on, now that I think about it. But anyway, he's staggered from Alex Mayer, which means he's going to have to do some work to get track position. Hang in the slipstream at number 77 JDR. Third row, Riley Harris and Charles Livingston. Like we mentioned, both of them actually were pretty competitive yesterday. Harris was able to be a part of the lead battle, or the second place battle as it was, through most of the race, and we'll see what he's able to do this afternoon. Their undoing, Hertz, Hamilton, and Harris, was the turn 5 exit curb for all three of them at various points during the race. These paved runoffs do create a little bit of extra margin for error, but the serrated curbing that lines the edge of the track just behind the white lines is actually very, very sharp and very tall, and it will upset the momentum and drive of the car on corner exit. So we'll need to keep an eye on that as well. I'm happy to say our Canada Corner camera is finally working. We've got our turn 13 camera up, and as the Atlantics head up the hill to take their start for race 10 of their championship, our focus turns behind them. The Porsche safety car pulls off. The Atlantics go 2x2 up the hill out of turn number 14, and off in the distance to screen left, you will see a pair of white JDR chassis, 3 rows deep, and set for 12 laps of racing from the 4-mile Road America circuit, 48 miles. And it's a good formation, nice and slow up the hill, but very tightly bunched. Our field of 6. So the Atlantics head away. The green flag waves out my window here at start-finish. And I can tell you it's Alex Mayer with a jump, but only just. Steve Hamilton along his left side. They were 3 wide behind him. Hertz, Bird, and Harris headed down into the braking zone at turn 1. And as they appear stage right out of our camera, I will tell you, and you will see it, is Alex Mayer, Hamilton, Nathan Bird around the outside of Doug Hertz in that number 13 Furman, down the hill into the braking zone at turn 3, still side by side for third. Now Nathan Bird edges ahead in the number 39 Arrive Drive Motorsports JDR. Alex Mayer gets the jump out ahead of the field, but behind them, guys, it is a pack of 5 knitted together down the back straightaway.
Yeah, and this is going to be a very perilous time, right? Because this is going to be the heaviest braking zone on the corner, on the course, maybe Canada Corner. So this is going to be also the longest braking zone. They've all single filed up by the time they get there. We'll make that a burp.
Pretty much as it was at the start. The only real change is Nathan Bird and Doug Hertz changing positions, 3rd and 4th. It wasn't quite so easy getting there, but Alex Mayer runs away at the front, built up something like 3/4 of a second now. And all neat and tidy for the most part as they head through turn 7 and down in the braking zone at the bottom of the hill for turn 8. They'll reappear at the entry to the carousel, and from here on out, you are flat out until you get to that braking zone for Canada Corner. Like Joseph mentioned, maybe not the hardest braking zone, but it is the top speed on the track. And without our camera at the exit of the kink today, we'll pick them up at the braking zone for turn 12, a good passing opportunity, even though it's this sort of long arc between turns 11 and 12 down this straightaway at Kettle Bottoms.
Yeah, critical here is going to be the fact that Alex Mayer is already pulling a gap. He doesn't want to be providing second place with any slipstream, and it looks like he's basically out of the danger zone there. I'm curious to see how Nathan Bird's able to get on he hasn't really pulled second back in. So I'm not sure how much of a threat he's going to be.
Harrison Hertz side by side down the front straightaway just in front of me. And from the right-hand side, we will see, there's that gap that Alex Mayer has pulled on Steve Hamilton. Nathan Bird has actually pulled out quite a margin on P4, but it's no longer Doug Hertz. It's Riley Harris and the number 12 Van Diemen that takes P4 away.
Yeah, look at it just on that lap. You can see in the scoring pylon, 2.5 seconds to Alex Mayer just on that first lap.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised that Nathan Bird hasn't been able to pull anything in the draft or in the slipstream up to the back of Steve Hamilton, and now he's actually coming under fire from the number 12 of Riley Harris. Like I said, actually kind of surprised here.
Yeah, well, there's a couple things going on, right? So Formula cars are a little draggy just because they have all the kind of bits and bobs hanging off. But these are relatively sleek cars, and they've got a decent amount of power to them. Where you see slipstreaming effects is in things like, Skip Barbers or Moto 3s, things that are kind of underpowered things that are very draggy. These aren't necessarily that, so we might have been overstating the effects of the slipstream.
To some degree. Go ahead.
We did see the slipstream having at least a little bit of an effect in qualifying. 2 to 3 tenths either direction, depending on where you were as far as the other traffic. So I figured it would be a bigger deal, but maybe we'll see more of that as we come up on the Formula Atlantics.
Yeah, those Atlantics
move, or is that Bird defending?
There goes Hamilton in second. It's Bird defending from Harris. Harris is going to try to go around the outside at turn 13. That is an awfully difficult move to make, even with the bridge no longer existing on the outside there. It's wide open to the access road, essentially, so you kind of get an extra lane, but still a really, really difficult place to make a pass, and now it's killed his momentum and rhythm through turn 13 and 14, and it's allowed Doug Hertz up onto the back of the number 12 of Riley Harris, and he'll have to defend down the front straightaway and into the braking zone at turn 1. All this is allowing Mayer and Hamilton away at the front. Harris has made, he's actually been able to defend on Doug Hertz, and he's been able to pull up onto the back of the 39 of Nathan Bird. A lock up.
Some fire smoke there.
Yeah, for sure. Harris is actually, I think that was Harris that did it. If it was, he's collected that well. If not, it was Nathan Bird who has completely opened the door for Riley Harris down the back straightaway, and he's going to pull up to driver's right into the braking zone at turn 5. You see a blue flag from the corner marshal there. Wave to the Braun GP Formula Atlantic, who is about to be caught by Alex Mayer, moved on for P4.
Yeah, there was a little bit of movement in the braking zone. I'm not sure Nathan knew how close Harris was behind him, but
that move's done, Joseph. It's Hertz behind him now. Harris has moved in front.
Wow, okay. So after a very aggressive first lap, it's actually kind of gone the other direction for Nathan.
Yeah, and I would have thought that Nathan's consistency would have helped him in this case, but Harris and Hertz have really been pushing on here, and I think he's kind of getting sucked into this battle, whereas he might have been able to just sort of maintain the gap out in front and maybe claw his way up to the back of Steve Hamilton in the 93. He's now got caught scrapping with the other two, and Hamilton is just walking away with the second podium spot.
Absolutely checked out.
Yeah, I want to make a quick note about the blue flag. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brendan, but that's a blue flag with a yellow stripe down the middle. So that's not saying you have to move over for Nathan Bird taking a defensive line into Canada corner.
Several defensive lines in Canada corner.
True. Defensive, offensive, special teams, all in play. So that flag doesn't mean that you have to move over. It's basically just informative. It says that just so you know, there is a faster car behind you, and keep an eye on your mirrors. Yeah,
advisory only, although highly suggestive that you move over. And most of the Atlantics will play well with the Formula 1000s. We did see it make things reasonably interesting back at Mid-Ohio, Joseph, where the dirty air off of the Formula Atlantics sort of... I don't want to say artificially closed the race up, but did cause Alex Mayer some headaches. Riley Harris was wide at turn 1, and that's allowed Nathan Bird up within about a car length of the number 12 Van Diemen. They come through turn 3 single file. I think we've lost the bridge camera, have we? And by the time, there we go. Single file. Thank you, Tanner. Single file down the back straightaway, and as they head into the downhill braking zone at turn number 5, I suspect things are going to be as they were. Harris didn't look close enough. He defends awfully aggressively in front of Hertz.
Oh,
yes. Yeah, so that was...
We'll have to see if that's going to be a pass under yellow.
Several passes under yellow. I don't think they realize they've gone double yellow here.
It was quick.
Hertz certainly
I think it had gone double yellow while we were on that shot.
It did. Hertz has actually gone through here. Yeah, Mayer's backed off behind the Formula Atlantic. I think Hertz went through and did not realize it went double yellow. Made the pass on Harris, or on Bird, who was himself about to make a pass on Harris. Riley Harris was the first to see that double yellow and pulled out to driver's right pretty much immediately.
It's a very convenient entry point for the safety truck.
Yes. So we would assume it's somewhere between, well, realistically, probably somewhere between the carousel and the kink, because I think we might otherwise see a moving flag here at Canada Corner.
Yeah. I hope it's not an accident at the kink, because that would be... these cars are pretty safe, but it would be an expensive old accident.
No, the F1600s yesterday did a decent job of wadding up a car or two up at the kink. They did an even better job of wadding up about 4 cars down at turn 14 this morning. One of the cars climbing over the wheel of another and ending up in the gravel trap. But everybody okay down there at turn 14 earlier today, for the F1000s anyway. No suggestions, but as far as I can count, we still have 6 Formula 1000s.
Now, the question for me is going to be, how do we reform on the restart here?
It'll be race order.
Well, sure, but is there going to be any sort of gap between the classes here? Because if not, that is going to put Alex Mayer right into the back side of the Formula Atlantic field.
Yes. Which is, well, and a Formula Atlantic field in a bunch. Not just one car at a time where, okay, somebody is likely to pull over and let you go. Those Atlantics are going to be in a battle of their own on our restart. And like you said, creating some havoc for the 77 of Mayer. It looked like down the straightaway there, Doug Hertz had redressed his pass under yellow at turn 5. So the race order now, Mayer and Hamilton. Then there's a Formula Atlantic between him and Harris, between Hamilton and Harris. Nathan Bird is 4th. Doug Hertz is 5th. And then Charles Livingston still off the back of the field there in P6.
I suspect that... So we've got all the F1000s accounted for. I suspect that what we've had is possibly a 2-car incident between a couple of Atlantics.
Are you thinking it's Keith Grant and Richard Zober?
I am indeed.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where that would have been on track, but that would explain the yellow. Because I'm also scanning through the pictures that we have, and I don't see anything that suggests an obvious cause.
No, and as we panned around through the rest of that initial yellow flag lap, okay, well, it's not Keith Grant unless he's come out of the gravel trap. Keith Grant is supposed to come on the front straightaway.
That's a good... If he's come out of the gravel trap, that's an interesting point. I mean,
it is possible they were beached somewhere, although we have most of the gravel traps in view.
He is a full lap down, though, so unless he's come back into the pits to have service done, you know...
Am I right in saying, Joseph, though, that they would... If he had come out of the gravel trap, he would be completing lap 4, not lap 3. Unless he spent a full lap in the gravel.
Yeah, which seems plausible to me.
It does, yes.
These cars are pretty low. It's easy to get high centered on the gravel in a Formula car like this.
Yes, or indeed on a curb for that matter.
Yeah, that too.
Off and end up hooked up on a curb.
We went double yellow when the Formula 1000s were in turn 5.
Yes,
which would have put. What about the backside of the carousel? Actually?
Yeah, I mean that's entirely possible. Anywhere between, based on where that safety truck entered the track at the entry to the carousel, I would say anywhere between the Speedville Bridge going into turn 9, and Canada Corner is in play here. You would hope it's not at the kink. Like you mentioned, for the driver's sake, I mean, these cars are strong, but it's a very high-speed portion of the track. It's flat out. In these downforce cars, you have plenty of grip. It's not like you're, on the edge of adhesion mid-corner. But with that being said, it would create a slightly more lengthy cleanup, which I think would leave us in a position wondering if we're going to be able to get this thing back to green. In addition to, having to clean up the car, you've also got to clean up whatever the debris that's been scattered is. And
that's
we'll have to wait and see.
true. But I think we tend to do a pretty good job of just stopping the race in these club level events.
That is true.
If we know it's going to be a lengthy cleanup, so I suspect it's probably, if I'm going to speculate, which as is my want, I guess.
We've become experts in that.
Yeah,
Recule experts. Anyway.
My guess is it's really easy to was it the vortex of danger? I believe is the phrase. There are several of those through the carousel. I think that's the 40 that's going by.
It is, yeah. Keith Grant. So Richard Zober is a car we haven't seen yet.
There are several potential vortices of danger in going through the carousel if you're in a tight battle with somebody. So it's not crazy to think that somebody has kind of tried to make a move on the inside of somebody, or maybe not left enough room on the exit to the carousel. And so we lost a couple of cars there.
If you watched our onboard on DriversEye Live with Ax Kamich's birthday boy, as a matter of fact, from the Formula 1600 Race 2 this morning, you will have seen the dangers of open wheel racing, and that is generally wheel-to-wheel contact down at Canada Corner. It was sort of a no harm, no foul situation. Axe carried on. The driver, that made contact with Axe carried on. It was sort of a slam the door at the apex situation. But the almost inevitable result of any level of contact in an open wheel car is a car ends up flying off to one side and into a gravel trap, into a barrier or something to that effect, as opposed to a tin top or a sports car like we might cover in an endurance race, where you can get away with a little panel beating and carry on unaffected. Not the case here in the Formula 1000s or in the Atlantics, as the case was this time.
Worth remembering, although, I think we had 10 to go. The overlay has switched on us, which is discomforting. But we had
because they've turned off the laps to go. On Race Monitor, it reads 10,000. Well, 9999.
Okay.
They've reverted this to a timed race, regardless. Which
what does that?
I don't know what to
for
do.
us.
I do not know the answer here. My guess is it will go to 12 or time.
Okay.
I did end up saying. I thought about saying at one point. I thought, it'll be too tongue in cheek. Well, shoot, if we have this long of a yellow period, maybe we didn't need to take those 2 laps off the race for the Formula 1000s. But, if they're going to race this out to time now instead, I didn't think they would do that.
Yeah, it'll be to one of the, instead of being 15 or time like it was for the Atlantics, now it's very much time for them. This will be 12 or time for the F1000s. Now, there's no checkered flag that will wave at 12 laps. This is policed by the race engineers and the F1000 teams themselves. They've come together and agreed that this is how they're going to handle it. Atlantics and FRP, who stewards these races, has agreed to the same protocol. We, time permitting, we'll get our 12 laps in, even if the Atlantics don't get their 15 laps in, based on sort of the window we're in now. But we'll have to keep an eye on that.
The 66
17 minutes gone now. Go ahead.
Yeah, the 66 is going to be well wedged in there, because I'm surprised that it's taken us. What are we on, our 3rd or 4th caution lap here?
Well, the interesting thing to me too, I don't know if Tanner's been watching the other track sides here, but we haven't seen anything come through Canada Corner, have we?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm sure. Yeah, but as I suggested, I think if it was a substantial situation, I think they would have just ended the race. So I suspect it's just an issue of maybe they don't want to get a recovery vehicle beached in the gravel trap or something. If it's
assuming it is in the gravel. They've put the.
I'm pretty comfortable assuming it's in the gravel, but anything is possible.
I can tell you now they're no longer holding double yellows at start-finish. The starter has picked up a furled green flag in his hand. He'll have to wait the better part of 3 to 4 minutes for the cars to come back around and get this race back underway. But this ought to be the last lap under full course caution, and we can resume racing here with. It'll be 7 laps complete by the time they take the green.
Okay.
So we'll be looking for 5 laps to complete in around 10. It'll end up being about 10 minutes by the time they make it back to start finish, which is not really doable unless, the way timing works out, we go under to start our 12th lap with a minute left.
Ryan,
what be that 12th lap?
Ryan, what are you, Alex Mayer, in this situation? You're right up against another class. You've got your competitors behind you. How do you navigate this?
Well, do we know which car Alex Mayer is behind in the line? Because I know that there's at least one Formula Atlantic between him and those behind.
That would be Robert Wright.
Robert Wright and Kurt Kinsvater, who will make the point, both have fastest laps slower than Alex Mayer.
Exactly. That's what I was going to come to next. Is they've run like a 2:12 and a 2:15, and Alex Mayer has run a 2:09. Now, are they going to have that pace on the first lap after a yellow? Probably not. But I'd imagine that, halfway through the lap at least. Again, we're talking about a big lap here. They're going to be up to temperature. He's going to want to clear those guys basically as quickly as possible, because the people behind in Formula 1000 are going to run about the same pace as those 2 Formula Atlantics. So the sooner he can clear them, the better.
Yeah. We've got the recovery vehicles coming through. That's a good pickup by Tanner.
Yeah, and that's damage to the front end of that car.
That's damage to the front left for sure. That was the front left suspension was definitely hanging. So that.
Fortunately, the safety cell and everything looks like it's in one piece, which is nice.
Yeah, but that doesn't actually clear up anything for me personally. It didn't look like it had gone through the gravel trap, so maybe they did go wide in the kink and just brush the wall.
That it looked to me like there was a little left front suspension damage on that car, left front hanging low.
I'd agree with
even
that.
Lower than the angle of the car. The front wing was missing on that car as well, which, like you mentioned, would suggest it was into the wall, maybe on driver's left somewhere down at the kink.
Which would be a pretty quick...
of Richard Zober, just to put a point on that, confirmed now.
Yeah, that's going to be a pretty quick impact, though, so hopefully he more brushed the wall and it was more of a glancing blow than just a slam. And again, the safety cell was kind of all in one piece, and these Formula Atlantic cars are built pretty well.
Look at Mayer. Look at Mayer right up on the rear wing.
Yeah. Ready to go. So here comes the safety car back into the pit lane. The Formula Atlantics come around the final turn, and they're going to be hitting the gas here shortly.
Single file restart, as you see.
Yep, we're looking for the 77 of Alex Mayer, about 8th in line here. Hamilton is actually hanging very much off the back of Alex. I'm kind of surprised he wouldn't try and at least stay tucked up under him, even if he couldn't get a jump. The green flag waves. Hamilton and Mayer have both gotten by at least one Formula Atlantic down the front straightaway, which will help our case immensely.
Mayer was passed right by the time they crossed start-finish.
There's Mayer, there's Hamilton, so they are nose to tail, but tucked up behind either Chris Atch or Kirk Kinsvater in the Atlantics. Hamilton has not gone through. Hertz, Harris, and Bird are all past the Atlantics that were holding them up, leaving only Charles Livingston on his own shotgun on the field.
Yeah, I think that bright red is Kinsvater. I think the more crimson is Robert Wright.
Okay, I'll buy that. And, Steve Hamilton laid on the brakes into turn 5. Gets some moves done on, we think it's Kinsvater. Yeah, not for position, obviously.
Looked like the rear wanted to step out on him there, so there's a decent amount of threshold braking.
Yeah, that's by far the deepest I've seen him on the brakes. Most of the Formula 1000 drivers, even in race trim, will sort of back the braking zones up, take it easy on the way in, and then come back to the throttle very early, tending to focus on the exit. But every now and then it's nice to see that you really can threshold brake these cars and get them, deep into the braking zone and still make it back to the apex. Ooh, side by side onto the way into the carousel. That's Riley Harris around the outside of Doug Hertz.
Takes a lot of spatial awareness to make it around a situation like that without ending up in a gravel trap.
Yes, Nathan Bird was sitting immediately behind those two. And it's a shame we don't have Nathan's onboard camera working at the moment. Would have been nice to see that through the carousel until the cell reception dropped off. But nevertheless, I will assume by the time they get to the braking zone for Canada Corner here that we are going to see Mayer leading Hamilton, and then Harris and Hertz. There's Mayer, Hamilton, Harris, Hertz, Bird, and then the big gap back to the number 33 of Charles Livingston.
I'm going to be honest. Alex hasn't pulled a gap that I thought he would. You see it there by the time they come out of 14. It's extended quite a bit, so maybe I spoke too soon.
Sorry, Joseph. Run for Nathan Bird up the front straightaway behind Doug Hertz. He's got to his right side by the time he comes across start-finish here. And the move should be complete down in the braking zone unless the number 39 is hamstrung a little bit for top-end speed. We've seen it a couple times this weekend where really not able to take advantage in the draft. One of the Atlantics goes wide, and as they head down the hill, move complete, and Bird defends from Doug Hertz fairly successfully, but it's going to compromise his exit of turn 3 and put Doug Hertz in the slipstream of the number 39 GDR down the long back straightaway, giving Hertz the opportunity to make a move into turn 5. Mayer and Hamilton alone out in front. A gap opens up there. Hertz.
And Hertz has got it. He's done it.
He's deep, but the move is done and avoids going out over the big serrated curbs on the exit of turn 5, meaning he can put his eyes forward and focus on the rear of the Van Diemen chassis of Riley Harris. Good run from Harris this weekend, too. He's been really competitive in that number 12, really improved as the weekend has gone on. And even though Nathan Bird's pace has been pretty consistently around a 2:09, the others around him have quickened up as the race has gone on and really sort of taken the fight to that number 39. Apologies for the gap in coverage around the back of the circuit. Cell coverage just is not very good back there, and it's also very far away from anywhere we can get to, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's a big creek that runs. The reason why the wall is so close to the kink there is because there's a creek that runs past the.
Yeah.
Yes. It is a nice walk on a Friday, but the day of the race, less so.
Oh, you could lose an hour. Having to make that walk 2 or 3 times? It takes ages. Ooh, Doug Hertz and Harris have changed positions again, I think.
Yep.
That will probably have been down at the braking zone for turn 12. There's Hamilton, Harris. No, Bird was defending in front of Hertz. Harris is still out in front. Hertz has a run here. No, that move did change hands. Sorry, the position did change hands. Hertz was up behind Nathan Bird. And that's a spin from Doug Hertz at the apex of turn 1. Really heads up driving from the 39 of Nathan Bird to swing out wide over the paved runoff and not get collected as Hertz spun back across the track.
There was so much that could have gone wrong there. You could see Hertz, it looked like just clutching it in to let it roll back, and they were really fortunate. You're right that it was some heads-up driving, but they were also really fortunate to not collide with each other.
Oh, yeah. Extremely bad. Yeah,
no, I'm not making the point that Hertz or Bird was out of the danger zone by any stretch of imagination there. He did exactly what he had to do to avoid the spinning Doug Hertz. And had he not been as good as he was in avoidance there, that, like you mentioned, would have been pretty substantial there. Doug Hertz able to carry on in the Furman, but it's left him, well, we won't get a gap until they come across the line again, but pretty far off the back of Nathan Bird. I think he's been able to hold the position over Charles Livingston. The gap at the front, incidentally, between Alex Mayer and Steve Hamilton is now 4.5 seconds. I'm sure Mayer could be going quicker. This is just him managing the gap and keeping Steve Hamilton out of the range of his slipstream. A 2:09.4 fastest lap from Steve Hamilton, 2:08 flat from Alex Mayer. and Mayer will probably not trouble the back of Chris Ash in the Atlantic before the end of this one.
And now, I assume I was prepared for a distance race, but this is a time race now. I assume we have a half-hour window.
I believe it is a half hour. Yes, we've completed 10 laps, but no white flag has waved for the for the Atlantics.
That makes sense to me. I think we'll have two. I think we'll have two more here.
Well, we definitely have two more for the 1000s, as opposed to 3.
Well, and in that case, it'll be a 12-lap race regardless.
Yes, and that was my point earlier, where there's this goofy window where the Atlantics go to time, the 1000s go to time, but they also complete the full race distance of 12 laps within that timed window.
Confirmation that Douglas Hertz does just barely have a margin over Charles Livingston. I assume he'll be able to hold on to that. He's got more pace in normal circumstances, but you never know what a spin like that does to the internals of a drivetrain, the tires, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, especially the tires. Very easy to flat spot. Now, he did keep the car rolling back across the track, which sort of created that situation with Nathan Bird. But at least, in any spinning situation, you are likely to scrub a little square corner on a set of tires as you spin sideways or begin to roll backwards. One thing that I'll say as an observation, that spin from Doug Hertz, we don't often see cars off track backwards on the Formula 1000s. This suggests to me that these guys have actually been pushing on fairly hard. This isn't messing around Road America and trying to pick up a position here or there. Hertz and Bird, and I think Harris as well, have been really pushing those 3 cars in a battle throughout our 12-lap race.
Yeah, and so Bird was catching back up to Hertz there, and they were. It looked to me, you're at the facility, I'm not. It looked to me based on timing that they were side by side going across the straight. So Hertz was giving it everything. Bird's fast lap in this session is about 0.15 second faster.
Yeah.
So Bird has a little bit of a pace advantage, and so Hertz is really going to be at 10 tenths trying to keep him behind. And that's just the kind of thing that happens when you're at the limit of any car.
White flag waves over Alex Mayer, who is set to complete a weekend sweep at Road America. I think I'm right in saying this may be his first weekend sweep since Carolina. Or he did win both at Mid-Ohio, didn't he? We were there for that. But a race 2 fire at Barber and a race 1 poor tire choice in a little bit of rain at Pittsburgh meant he sort of got in his own way a little bit and wasn't able to pick up the double, but with about 3 miles left to go around Road America, it should be 2 for 2 for the pride of Harleysville, Pennsylvania. Steve Hamilton's second. So JDR is on for a 1-2 here, and it's nice to see Steve recover to a podium today after being really, cruelly shut down yesterday in race 1. We did end up confirming, by the way, that it was a blown clutch for Steve Hamilton. Joseph had pointed out he thought it sounded like it was slipping. Indeed, that was the case. They replaced it, and Steve Hamilton, who by all accounts had the pace and the consistency to go 2 for 2 on the podium this weekend, should, I don't want to say this too loudly, but should be able to pick up a P2. He's only got about
3/4 of a mile to go.
And a well-deserved P2 at that. This is not a, hey, cars in front of me retired and I was able to pick up the pieces. He's been P2 on pace all weekend. Really good showing from Steve Hamilton in the 93. Riley Harris with a 3-second margin over
here at
yes, at 13. You keep calling it that, and it keeps meaning nothing to me.
So there were 2 cars. It was second and third, and it because they were side by side.
Through Canada corner.
That was Pabst and Fleck. Augie Pabst and Dudley Fleck were side by side into Canada corner, and I suspect that they have made contact, and one of them has come off worse for wear.
Alex Mayer heads up the hill and takes the checkered flag for the second time this weekend at Road America. 2 for 2 for Harleysville, Pennsylvania's Alex Mayer. Rounds 9 and 10 of the championship. The sweep goes to the number 77 JDR. Congrats to Alex. Steve Hamilton with a fantastic second-place finish. Again, able to salvage the weekend with a podium spot after some cruel luck yesterday. And Riley Harris And the Van Diemen picks up P3 in the number 12. Nathan Bird will finish 4th after being caught out just behind a spinning, or to the left of a spinning Doug Hertz as it was. And will finish 8th overall in the race, just a spot ahead of that 13 of Doug Hertz, who will finish P5 ahead of Charles Livingston, shotgun on the field in the number 33. A full 12-lap race for the Formula 1000 Championship. So that's worked out in our favor as well, despite the long full-course yellow in the middle of the race this afternoon. So it was kind of the race we expected to see out at the front, at least. Alex Mayer was able to pull that gap on Steve Hamilton, who in turn was able to pull a gap on the trio of cars behind him. But like we saw in the early parts of, well, actually throughout yesterday's race, wasn't it? We had a really nice 3-car battle, especially before the full course yellow, with Doug Hertz, Riley Harris, and Nathan Bird.
You see here that Nathan Bird set his fastest lap in the last lap. He did a 2:09.3, which was about 0.8 clear of what Riley Harris was able to do on his quickest lap.
I think that's about very nearly exactly the same time he did in qualifying as well.
Yep, I think he was a 2:09.28 or 2:09, and the car ahead was a 0.88 or something. It was 19 thousandths of a second separated them, but he was able to make good on that pace. His qualifying pace he was able to put at the end of the race. Doesn't quite look like anybody else got there except for those at the front, and even they weren't running in their sub 2:08 range.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's gone sub 2:09 other than Alex Mayer this weekend. Hamilton might have clicked off.
Hamilton's got an 8.9 this race.
Oh, he does. Very
Yes.
good. All right. Well, I will be very happy to stand corrected on that. And to that point,
the
Hamilton
30-second mark has been broken.
There are so many thoughts swirling in my head. Lap times at Road America right now. There's D-Sports racers involved here. There's payday lending schemes involved here. So many things. But to your point about the 2:08 from Steve Hamilton, that's within a second of Alex Mayer's race pace. I know that we had acknowledged that Alex was sort of pedaling that car a bit, but I don't think it was by a whole lot. And Steve able to put his fastest lap of the weekend, actually, on lap 11, just before the checkered flag. So really nicely done there. I'm surprised to not see the Furman fare quite as well. Obviously, Doug Hertz with the spin in that number 13 sort of relegated himself to P5. But that car has been so good in a straight line over the last couple of races that I would have thought it would have really suited the number 13 chassis. And to that point, it's kind of a shame we didn't have Shane Prieto this weekend. One of the quickest of the Furman cars, and just not... it would have been nice to see that car in representative pace up against Alex Mayer. Yeah,
that is one of those sort of double-edged swords of these series where drop weeks are permitted and encouraged. It means you sometimes don't get the full field, but it also means that you've got more people who can be competitive in the championship if they have to miss a race up in Elkhart Lake, for example. Yeah, and to that point, I mean, we saw a smaller field of cars at Barber as well, down in Alabama. Barber, something less of a bucket list track than maybe Road America. We did have 8 cars on the entry list here, but events conspiring against us, at least in the case of Glenn Cooper and John Willamy, who would have sort of helped fill out the field rather nicely. But at
this
Barber,
is the most... go ahead.
Well, at Barber, we only saw 5 cars, and there, it's less of a draw. But if you are East Coast based, which is I think where you were going with this, Ryan, the farthest we're going to be for most of these teams is here. Right. Maybe Autobahn in September, although it may be easier to get a little time off to go do something like that. And of course Barber back in May. I think this is where you would see teams elect to take those 4 dropped race results.
Yeah. This Road America, it's quite far from Chicago even, which is far from the East Coast. You talk about extra 3 or 4 hours north after you get to Chicago, which is already quite far. So
far from Joliet. I mean, Joliet
exactly.
Is another hour from here. So
exactly.
So with that all being said, as we sort of kill some time here waiting for our podium celebrations down in the paddock, talking about the drops in the points, JT Tammy is not with us today. He had been looking at the point standings. I don't think they're updated on the website after yesterday.
They are not, but I will say that this will give Alex Mayer a commanding lead. If he didn't have that already, he was going into round 8, 194 to 145. That's over Tim Pierce, who I do not believe featured this weekend at all. So he'll have gained, and it's Tim Pierce and then Shane Prieto. So Stephen Hamilton is the only person who would have affected the gap at all, and he got second place. So that's going to be Alex Mayer taking. How many points do you get for a win there, Brendan?
I have to be honest. I don't know. We don't get the race by race point standings on the North American Formula 1000 site. I'm sure I can have a discussion with Justin Hodges, and we can adjust that for our informational purposes here. But
it's. I was going to make the point really quickly that we're going to rapidly approach the point where Alex Mayer is just maxed out.
Yeah, that's what I'm starting to think, is that with the second and third place cars not coming in, again, we still haven't figured out the you can drop races situation. I think that'll play into it as well, but he's got to be getting close to where he's going to win and not have to worry about points towards the back end of the season, especially if people don't show up.
Let's make the point, too, that Alex Mayer hasn't missed a race yet this year.
Exactly. I'm sure he'll do all of them, but he'll have the points championship, I think, in the bag well before the end.
You're right. My point being that you have, if we're not counting drops yet because we haven't gotten to the final 2 rounds of the year, we don't have other Tim Pierce, for example, right? Not here this weekend, has 0 scores. I don't think he was at Barber either from memory. But with those 0 scores are counted against Alex Mayer's points finishes every weekend, right? So the gap is going to look a lot more dramatic until we get to those final 2 races and we start taking that into account. Unless we are, we indeed start dropping points from Alex Mayer and we take all that. I'm sure it will still be a fairly commanding lead for that number 77. But that won't be taken into full account or show its full effect until we get to later in the year, and or see Alex Mayer not participating. If it turns out that Alex ends up going to every race, by the way, he's going to end up dropping the 4th place finish from Pittsburgh and dropping the last place finish at Barber, where his car ended up aflame at turn 13. So it could end up being a situation where if he continues to show up every race, every counted points finish would be a win, which is an interesting thought.
Yeah, that's what I mean by being maxed out. Yeah,
I did want to make a point here on the series' behalf. During our random giveaway drawing on Friday down in the paddock as part of the hospitality that's put on by the North American Formula 1000 Championship presented by EPC, for next year they've announced that any entrant who shows up to every race, makes the effort to come out to a full season in the F1000s, will be entered into a drawing for $1,000. That's in addition to the tow fund by EPCUSA.com, which I think is either 100 or 150 per race per entrant, right? And that's meant to go to gas money, lodging, whatever you're going to use it for, just to help with the logistics. And that is the sponsorship from EPCUSA. In addition to, go back and watch one of these award ceremonies. For a field that is normally 8 to 12 drivers, the amount of stuff to give away is phenomenal. The entry fees are what they are for F1000s. I believe they match the Atlantics, but you can make up a good portion of that just in these random giveaways.
Absolutely.
Which is fantastic. The support for this series is really above and beyond relative to what you might get in other open wheel opportunities within the ladder system.
And it's got a friendly format as well with your ability to drop races. You don't have to come to every round. And obviously the $1,000, potential prize for going to every round, that's in play. But, if you're somebody who can't take that much time off of work, or you can only go to the local races, I think that works out pretty well. It's a good mix of, accessibility. When you're there and you're doing well, you're getting stuff paid for, you're getting tires, you're getting fuel, you're getting, all that sort of thing. So I think it's a really good series to have. I think the way they've set it up Should make it more popular in the future, I reckon. It's too bad they don't have a West Coast series of this as well.
Yeah, there used to be. This used to be a national class within the SCCA. It's sort of
Right.
had its seasons over the years of being national class, regional class, invitational at the runoffs, that sort of thing. But it has competed as Formula B at the runoffs in the past. Alex Mayer, I believe he's a runoff champion, but there are drivers who compete with these cars or have competed with these cars that are as competitive as the front of our North American Formula 1000 championship field. And it's been, I don't want to say it's something that's been lacking from the championship, but knowing that those drivers are out there, you would love to see them come and play in what is the only season-long championship for this formula of cars. Not being a national class in the SCCA anymore, they don't get, season-long points. There's no runoff eligibility there as far as, scoring points in a season. And this is the opportunity for these guys to go play. Rather than SCCA nationals and regionals. So you'd love to see participation step up a little more.
And as far as participation goes, the fact that it's a regional class means there's cars out there. There's FP cars, there's Formula 1000 cars sitting around, not being raced. But it's something, if you're in with your local SCCA chapter, or if you're with NASA or whoever, I'm guessing you asked around, there's somebody looking to clear out their garage because they don't run this chassis anymore. So the chassis are there, and I'm sure you could score a reasonable deal trying to get one and just kind of get one going. Get a new motor in there, and you should be good to go and come out and have a good time.
Yeah, to that point, I mean, the budget on a Formula 1000 car, chassis, season, however you want to break it down, the promotional line from Dustin Hodges is it's Formula Atlantic speeds for Formula 1600 budgets. I mean, these chassis are designed to be affordable. The engines are 1000cc superbike engines, so they're out there in fantastic quantities. You can go
absolutely
just about anywhere. They're interchangeable. There are some differences in the way the engines install, but for the most part, there's no real. You're not locked into any one solution, so you can come up with one that fits your budget, fits your ability level and your preference, and send it racing. On top of that, the drop situation allows teams to come out when they have the availability to do it. Almost all of these drivers have full-time jobs doing other things. And they make it a point to use this as their time off and come out and race. So the opportunities are pretty substantial here. The F1000s. The one thing we don't really get in F1000s is sort of a young driver ladder. There are some younger guys in the paddock. I mean, Alex is not much older than we. And Riley Harris, I think, is also sort of in his 30s. Nathan Bird is sort of the one standout, where he's using this as an opportunity to get track time. He's using the coaching from Arrive Drive Motorsports as a way to build up his let's say his talent level, his experience level,
his level of competition.
Yeah, and to use that moving forward into a professional career. And I think more drivers would do well to take advantage of that. The F1600s and the F2000s are a nice place to start. But once you get to the F2000s, you're running something like, Mazda Road to Indy pace, or not Mazda anymore, it's just Road to Indy. Those cars, the MZR engined F2000s, are the old Road to Indy cars. So beyond that, your option is to go buy an Atlantic if you're looking to keep getting track time and experience before you shell out, $250,000 to go Road to Indy racing. Your option is to go buy an Atlantic and spend that kind of money. Or if you want to step up in pace, you want to be gaining confidence on track, go get an F1000. Run 7 or 8 races in a year within the FRP and F1000 structure here and get track time. Get used to going more quickly, and changing and adapting to different styles of cars. That's how you get better as a young driver. And if that's your target, by all means, go get one of these F1000 cars and engines and get out here and sort of mix it up with the Atlantics and with the other more experienced guys in F1000, because bang for buck, it is maybe the best step in a amateur racing or amateur open wheel racing ladder before you go shell out and start paying national touring series kind of money.
Exactly. I actually, really agree with that. And I think there's now, just to kind of follow up on that, I don't want to talk about other series, much at all, but there's opportunity that if you're doing, and I spoke with somebody in town here who runs a super modified, and he and his son were talking about doing a late model and this, that, and then even they're talking about, hey, we really want to get into road racing, but we're not sure if there's, availability for that. It's on Formula 1000's website. You can do an arrive and drive type experience, it looks like. They'll set you up with that. But I think we're at a point now in racing in general, especially road racing, where you can drop into an amateur quote-unquote endurance series for a weekend. You can come do this. You can do that. You can, there's lots of different ways to kind of get your feet wet into racing.
Yeah, I think there's sort of a mental... monopoly is maybe too strong of a word, but in terms of visibility, popular visibility, I think it can be really easy to fall into a trap of saying, well, we've only got two options if we want to go road racing, right? We can either go, we can follow a certain path to IndyCar, or we can follow a certain path to IMSA. That's not necessarily true. We cover a series where people are taking unconventional routes to sports car racing. There's no reason that shouldn't be true of open wheel racing too.
Exactly.
It's one of those things where it's just it's one of the, as the attention builds, it'll be on these sort of alternate series. It'll become more and more obvious that there are different ways to do this thing, and often more cost-effective ways. Which is just look at the roster in second tier NASCAR. It's all it's all legacies basically, and so cost is a huge issue when it comes to trying to get into these series.
Your point, Joseph, about alternate formula series, I think is a salient one, or at least mentioning it, I think is crucial, because this ladder that we have here is sort of a rung or two below what you might see on a national touring series, but it doesn't make it any less valid. And it provides similar opportunities for a wildly different budget for a start. But the drivers you see in the F1600s, the F2000s, are, aspiring to that same sort of target without that same level of promotion behind it. But as people start to realize that this is, as you said, a valid pathway to an open wheel career as a professional, assuming you have the talent and the budget to do that, of course. This series and these series associated with F1000 and this ladder will become equally valid. F1000 certainly already is. The 1600s here at the FRP certainly are. And then it's just a matter of how you want to get from point A to point B and launch into a career.
Yeah, I mean, not to aggrandize things too much, but I find the evolution and de-evolution, I guess, of F3000 overseas so interesting, right? Because it was such a dominant feeder series for a decade or two, and eventually people realized, oh, this is actually really expensive to do, and basically found other avenues, and those other avenues were more cost effective, and they made sense for people.
And it got one particular manufacturer a lot of name dropping in F1 series.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where these options are available, and just because it doesn't have a certain sanctioning body attached to it, doesn't mean that it's not a good option, or doesn't mean that it also can't be associated with that sanctioning body in the future. You never know with these things.
Exactly. Wheel time is wheel time, is what they always talk about, among car circles at least, that the best mod for your car, if you're talking about doing track days or whatever, is to just get behind the wheel. And if you're in a position where you can't afford, the budget to go do one of the, major quote unquote national feeder series, this is as good a way to do it as anywhere else, because I think the running costs are super low. The format is quick, and I think we're good to go. It looks like we're going to be seeing a podium celebration from trackside, or not trackside, from the paddock at least. We'll be having that here in a couple minutes or so.
Yeah, I mean, to your point about just getting reps in, there's a I mean, I don't know if we're supposed to name drop, but we can name drop. I'm going to name drop. Misha Goikberg is here in a very inexpensive open wheel car.
Yep.
I'll put it that way.
Right.
Well, it's inexpensive until you wreck it, which is what.
Well, he's back in the race. They found a second car. So,
but yeah, it's just getting familiarity with the track and learning it, and there's a reason why at short tracks, every once in a while, track knowledge is more important. I shouldn't say more important, but can help with competition lacking in other dimensions. If your car isn't quite as good, but the track really well, that can make up a little bit of that difference. And so you don't even necessarily need to be angling for a specific type of car for budget conscious racing to make sense to you. You just need to be in a car and getting comfortable with a place and keeping your reflexes quick and the mind is a muscle, just like your arms, your shoulders, your knees, your feet, all the other components that make you a good racing driver. All of those things matter.
you're starting to see the cloud cover move in just a little bit, I guess.
The haze is faded too. That's what I was staring at.
I had to put a sweater on at lunch. The wind had picked up, and the temperature only ever got to 70, and a very different experience to yesterday. I only got broken a sweat once today. Not that I haven't tried. Yeah.
Don't tell the track sponsors over there at Jockey. Back of the very far left of the shot.
I don't. What is Jockey? Do we know?
It's a brand of clothing, Joe or Brendan.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't sponsor the North American Formula 1000 Championship.
But they could.
They absolutely could. Yes. As well as Quick Trip. If we could sort Brendan out with some gas, that'd be nice.
I almost went on my lunch break to go get gas, and then I didn't. So
does
I
was gonna say, does the
with a gas stop?
The paddock doesn't have their own pumps, do they? Because I wonder if it's Quick Trip gas.
I don't know.
I think they
actually.
do.
They must somewhere, because I don't know if it's Quick Trip, but isn't there a well-known sports car racing event coming up next weekend that I'm sure... Do they haul their own fuel in for that? They can't, right? Maybe?
I mean,
I think they do. I think the teams do, or the series sponsor does at least.
Yeah.
With a truck,
So
yeah.
much fuel.
well, I was gonna say, because it used to be a thing, and it still is, I think, in the upper echelons of motorsport, that you can have an open fuel as long as it conforms to certain specifications. You can bring your own fuel in. Famously, actually, you can bring your own fuel in, and maybe other things. Who can say?
Are you saying maybe your fuel has some 0 weight 20 in it potentially, or
Yeah, just a little something.
well, some things here and there. I heard that if you have a series that limits your fuel tank size, that you can make your oil tank 10 or 15 liters.
There you go.
Just in case you accidentally burn through some oil, and you make sure you want to, have enough to get to the end.
Grazie, ragazzi. Okay.
Excellent background noise going on right now.
I don't mind mixing in a few of these tracksides. I love watching
track cars.
We're not going to commentate on it. We're being paid for that, but
Of course.
I was tempted to for a second.
I
That's
know.
an interesting thing that's occurred.
Well, normally we'd be on board with Excomicius, but the time frame for me to get down to the paddock is way too tight to be able to manage the onboard camera down there. So unfortunately,
Can we
Rachel
only
is trying to
commentate
do
on
all of
Axe
that.
Comedius?
We could do that.
All right, cool. He just set a
I-
2:25.379 on lap 3.
Oh, we're doing this on timing.
He's currently 9th.
Okay. I wonder how far we are from a podium ceremony.
Well, you're probably only a couple hundred
geographically,
yards.
or- yeah.
Yeah.
I don't appear to
I'm
be
not far. I'm
anywhere.
about an hour away from a podium ceremony, but just not
Yeah.
for four-wheeled racing.
Anybody need a tent? There's a tent back there.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of structures around here this weekend that wouldn't otherwise be here. That big
Huh.
structure to the left of the camera shot that is serving as our background at the moment. Actually, it's the black one on the far left of the screen. That is a temporary structure with Lexus written on the side of it.
Oh, I was gonna make a joke about
Excellent.
because they're not sponsoring us. It's I can see Axis, but I don't know.
No,
I don't know
well,
who that could
so that
be.
one's a little irrelevant to not that Jockey wouldn't be, but Lexus is not. They don't make superbike engines, 1000cc superbike engines. So it's really
I did have the opportunity to potentially be in that pavilion as one of the 3 Lexus dealers in this region, and I had to turn that down because I'm going to be picking up my wife from the airport. So I'm a little bummed about that because that is a nice spot to put a VIP pavilion.
Where's she flying in from?
Northern California.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Yeah, no, that'll be quite nice. Just
Are
wish
those
it had
the
timed out
entry gates
better.
in the back, though?
To the right, yes, and to the left. So the right gates are, I think, the spectator gates, and the left gates are the sort of crew, etc., gates, wherein you can get yourself a golf cart potentially. A security man will wave at you and be friendly.
or not.
You can,
As
or
the
not,
case may be.
or not indeed.
It's just, I'm looking at that building. I assume you're talking about the one with the flag next to it.
Yes, the one to the
Okay.
right of the Lexus Pavilion.
Okay, so that building's funny to me because I'm getting Lime Rock vibes.
Yeah, yeah.
But then also a little bit of Sebring vibes. Like it's
Both places you've never been to.
I know.
Look, I've seen it on Forza. Okay.
Yeah, it's about the same. It's laser scan. Don't you get it? The Sam Posey straight, and I won't have anybody say anything different.
Brendan, did you
Are they
sample
going to
the?
rename the Sam Posey Straight to the Parker Klickerman Straight?
I hope so.
I hope not. No, they should make they should name the West Bend chicane after Parker.
They should just put the R for R team logo across the bridge.
Yeah, that's you know what. How obscure can we make these references?
I don't care. We're waiting for a podium.
By the way, Brendan, I am on the clock right now, so
Yeah, no, that's fine. So here's the story. The podium, after all this waiting around, the podium is going to be streamed on Facebook, on the North American F1000 page on Facebook. It should be fairly seamless. The video will be up in a few moments. Dustin is down there squaring the podium away with all of the celebratory items down in the paddock in the garage area specifically. You'll get to hear from Alex Mayer, from Steve Hamilton, and from Riley Harris on the third step of the podium. He will guide you through all that. Dustin Hodges will guide you through all that as your host. So we're going to start wrapping things up here so that we can turn you over to Dustin on Facebook for the podium ceremonies and everything that comes with that. We'll wrap this up here. My first thanks to Ryan West and Joseph Mudrock, JT Tammy with us yesterday on commentary. A huge thanks to Tanner Johnson on production up in a very smoky Alberta. Also fighting some fatigue at the moment, but he's done a stellar job all weekend for our 4 sessions on track and really 5 sessions on track, actually. Really appreciate everything he's done up there. Thanks to all of you for your company throughout this weekend, all of the sponsors and supporters of the North American Formula 1000 Championship. Dustin Hodges down in the pit lane doing a great job managing all that. And, of course, EPCUSA.com, who presents the North American Formula 1000 Championship. We will be live next from Summit Point in about 3 weeks. It is in 3 weeks' time, actually. August 22nd, 23rd, around one of America's finest club racing circuits. And on board a Formula 1000, that track is going to be something else. They'll be sharing track time with the F2000s, so your Formula 1000s will be way out in front, and they'll have some traffic to negotiate throughout that race. But looking forward to everything that Summit Point, West Virginia is going to throw at the North American Formula 1000 Circus. Thanks again to everybody for joining us this week, and congratulations to Alex Mayer, the double victory rounds 9 and 10 of the 2021 North American Formula 1000 Championship presented by EPCUSA.com. We will see you in 3 weeks here on Driver's Eye Live. Bye for now.